I was concerned why can't I work with the guys on this. Like, you say, I don't know, like, what are we doing? But, makes sense.
I'm like, why are we counting viewers? Oh, it's because we're not online.
Let's see if we can find it. No, I mean, we have viewers. Listening. I love you.
Like 30 seconds.
I don't know, that's great.
It was just like, oh.
Okay. Back to order. It's actually been 6 minutes and 30 seconds, so. The chair was filed upon a bill to move vending machines closer to Compass 144. Preferably have Dr. Pepper. I know we're still waiting on some people, but in the interest of time, since we do not have an extension for this meeting, we're going to go ahead and if there are no objections. If there are no objections, we will approve the consent agenda. With that, we'll now move into old business. First to present SB 6319, the tuition set aside opposition. Liberal objects, please report.
The only thing I can do is like, try to like.
Senator Scoggins, stand order.
Not driving. It seems like
The chair would advise that the future recesses will not be occurring if the time limit cannot be adhered to. Thank you.
We're losing viewers.
Please come to order. Chair Caperton.
Yeah, howdy! Howdy! Okay. So, y'all probably have a pretty good idea about what this bill is about. This bill opposes the tuition set-aside program set in place in 2003. It was created by House Bill 3015. That bill was the bill that deregulated tuition for all Texas public schools. What that meant was, yes, that's something we didn't like then and we probably still don't like. But what it did was before that, only the Texas legislature could increase tuition. They changed it so that there's a statutory tuition mandated by the state. That's currently $50. And then there's a designated tuition that the Board of Regents can change at will. And that's currently $100. So, created under that proposal was also a financial aid fund funded by the designated tuition. 15% of designated tuition went into this fund, and then another 5% goes to a state program called the Beyond Time program, run by the Higher Education Coordinating Board. We'll talk a little bit about that later. So SB 1304, which was passed this past legislative session, newly required all students to be notified of the amount of tuition set aside under the program. So, like I said, 15% is set aside in a financial aid pool run by the university. Another 5% goes to the Beyond Time loan program. Now, the loan program is open to all students of all Texas schools. That means Baylor students have access to this money. This is your money that's going to the program, but all university students have access to it. Sam Houston State, anyone. So tuition, the reason we think this program needs to be ended, there are several. The biggest one is that tuition set-asides are increasing the cost of education for all students. So if we took away this, this program and we gave that tuition back to the people who were paying it, we could decrease tuition by more than $20 per credit hour, per semester credit hour. Everyone is having a hard time paying for education, and we should always oppose tuition being taken by the state for the state's use. That Beyond Time Loan Program money doesn't come back to us. It stays there, and it goes out to students of all public high schools. Colleges, I mean. And so another reason this is coming up now is because back when designated tuition was created, designated tuition was a lot lower. It's actually increased by, I think it's about 165% since then. So the original intention was that very little money would be taken from all students, and it would go into a financial aid pool for the absolute poorest students. But we've gotten to the point now where every college student is poor because tuition is so high. We've gotten to the point where every student is paying a large chunk of money into this program, and then a lot of students are getting a lot out. And we think it would be much more efficient, much more fair to just end the program completely and decrease the cost of everyone's tuition. And we think that this program is unsustainable, especially extending in the near future, where we're probably going to have more tuition increases. So, a couple of things I wanted to add very briefly, then I'll let you guys comment some. But this also applies to Mays differential tuition and other colleges' differential tuition. So I know they're also talking about starting engineering differential tuition. And if they do that, then 20% of the differential tuition paid by them would go into the university pool. Well, it would go 5% to Beyond Time, 15% into the university pool for access to all students in the university. And the same thing happens with Mays. That's one of the requirements. So in effect, students who pay differential tuition are subsidizing the rest of the university, and that's not fair. All right.
With that, we'll move into a period of question and answer. Senator Smith.
Senator Smith, North. Scott, in terms of who this aid is going to, like in terms of need, like are there extenuating circumstances where even though we're talking about taking away the greatest aid, are there still options available for these needy kids and students to get some aid for those circumstances?
Yeah, to answer your question, the money that's coming back and staying here at the university, much of it is being applied towards scholarships or loans that are considered unrepayable to students. And again, the problem that we have with this is that higher education has, in terms of cost, has evolved greatly since 2003. In 2003, when they deregulated tuition was very low, and it was very affordable for the vast majority of the population, whereas a very small percentage at the bottom really couldn't pay for it. So the program worked out a little more feasibly then, but today you've got the vast majority of students that are struggling to afford higher education. So, but with that, in turn, we're not saying leave these students hanging or not give them any type of aid. There are, if you look out there, there's an increased availability of loans, grants, and scholarships all across the nation. I mean, that's a huge thing. And so nobody can technically be denied, especially through the federal government, a low-interest loan. And so what we're in essence saying is, if the rest of us are going to struggle to pay for higher education, we believe that everybody should bear that same burden there in taking out a loan. The question isn't whether you'll have the ability to afford higher education, it's whether you want to get a free ride to school or you want to take a loan like the vast majority of a lot of other students are doing these days. So it's about equaling it out, and it's about the students who are having a hard time paying for college, not having to help pay for someone else's college too. So I hope that answers your question.
With that, Senator Webb.
Especially web-based business school. Could you just go over how it affects differential tuition again? Just elaborate on that.
According to my understanding of it, differential tuition money also goes into the fund. So when you pay the extra, I'm not exactly sure, it's about $500 per semester, isn't it?
What differential tuition?
Maze
It's
differential
on a
tuition.
prorated basis, but it maxes out at 600.
So of that 610, 20% of that will be 122. So $122 of the differential tuition would be going 3/4 of that. So 75 or 76.50 goes to the scholarship fund, and then the other goes to the on-time loan program, just like differential tuition, or just like designated tuition. And if engineering started differential tuition, we've been told that they would be under that same condition. So the money is actually leaving the college and going into the same
So
financial.
this would be the condition of the bill, or is the way it is right now?
Yes, if they got rid of the program, then that would keep some of that money in Maze as well.
Senator Lane.
Evan Lang, off campus. I was wondering, if this is cut, how many students wouldn't be able to go to school here because of that? And would the university have to make this money up somewhere else?
Okay, again, so we don't have access by any means to an exact number of how many students, because ultimately it's a student's individual choice. It's not, if you want to ask the question, how many students will get, funding cut from, that's a different question. That's actually not something we have access to either. But when it comes down to it, it's not that students won't have the availability to go to school. It does create the affordability question. And the fact is, what we're saying is that we believe that certain students shouldn't just be given full rides and the rest of us have to bear the burden of loans like so many students do, or your parents just have to struggle to pay for you to go through college. So it's not a matter of will they be able to go to school, it's are they willing to accept the personal financial responsibility associated with such a high cost. The rest of us are having to bear that burden. So we believe it equals the playing field, it gives everybody the same opportunity, and ultimately doesn't take away money from other hardworking students who may not be receiving financial aid.
Senator Landry.
Allison Landry, College of Education. So a student who receives this money to help them pay for school, do they have to pay for it as part of their tuition back into the fund?
Yes, every student who pays tuition has to pay into this fund, whether they're receiving financial aid or not. So you can be getting money from the fund and paying back into it at the same time.
Senator Scoggins.
Robert Stockings off campus. Katie, good to see your name back on the bill. My question was, since this is state mandated, it's only available to public institutions? This pool,
There are really two different funding pools. The first funding pool applies to all state universities that charge designated tuition, and it stays within that university. So A&M Commerce has their own fund under this. Prairie View A&M has their own. UTE has their own. Every public university in Texas has their own fund where that 15% goes. Now, that 5% that goes to the Be On Time loan program, that's only undergraduate students, and that goes to the entire state. And then it's available to any Texas college student. So you can be going to Rice University and have access to money that came from A&M.
A brief follow-up.
Keep it brief.
So do these private institutions have to contribute as well?
No, they don't.
Senator Womack.
Howdy, Mark Womack off campus. Thank you guys for this bill. Specifically, did you meet with financial aid, anybody over there in that department, and what was the outcome of that meeting?
Spoke to them on the phone, pretty much just asked a few general questions which gave us some background that you'll find here in the bill, and also what we've discussed tonight. They weren't necessarily going to come out in favor of it, but obviously that's money that they're getting to distribute to students. So in the long run, yeah, this may decrease the amount of money that the state's able to take from students, or I'm sorry, the financial aid is able to take from students to divvy out how they wish, but ultimately we were able to gather some facts, which you'll see here again in the PowerPoint and on the bill, ultimately that supports our argument. So, thank you.
Senator Pulliam.
Justin Fulton Coles. I'm just really confused, guys. When I'm at home working all summer and working during the week, really hard to pay for my school. How does the extra $130 I pay for a semester benefit my education?
Yeah, the reason we wrote this bill is because we don't believe it does.
I see.
State order. Chair Thornburg.
Rachel Thornburg, Rules and Regulations. Do out-of-state students have to set aside some of their tuition to this program?
Yes.
Keep it brief.
Why was I not informed
out-of-state students aren't even allowed to see the amount of money that is taken from their individual bills and put into these programs.
So again, State Senator Dan Patrick, out of the Cypress area, I believe, he passed a bill that he didn't necessarily pass legislation to overturn the program, but he started kind of an effort to make students more aware. So many of you should have gotten emails early on in the semester, or you should have seen it somewhere on your billing statement that showed the specific amount that last semester that you had set aside based on what you paid to go to school.
We will all get the email at the end of this semester telling us how much was set aside under this program.
With less than 3 minutes, Senator Gerskadar.
Yeah, sure. Grant Grosvenor off campus. Question. If we get rid of this program, what kind of guarantee do we have that the money's actually going to come back into our pockets? Because I'm sure you guys know they set aside our tuition for a lot of stuff. So why is this program any different than lots of the other initiatives?
Well, I mean, we believe that any money taken aside from students, for other purposes is generally unacceptable. So we got to start somewhere. We believe this is a critical program to start in. And again, we kind of emphasize the fact that this program is unsustainable. We're talking about long-term, we're going to continue to see increases to tuition, especially here in the downturn economic crisis. Eventually, it's going to start catching up with us. So we've got to start looking around for areas, because as more and more students struggle to pay for college, it's the obligation of student leaders, like here at A&M and elsewhere, to start searching around and saying, where is the money being taken from us that's unjustified? And we believe that this is a pretty critical start. And with the upcoming legislative session, we want to send a strong message requesting that legislators consider and start looking at overturning this program.
Yeah, and to end, I think what you were going for with your question was, we spend money on a lot of things, so why are we going after this particular thing? The reason is because the money set aside, the money taken from students and set aside for tuition, and 20%, that's a huge chunk of our tuition. It doesn't go down for our education. All of the other spending, it goes to hiring more faculty, to keeping class sizes small, things tuition and university services, things tuition are supposed to pay for. But this tuition is just taking money out of the pockets of some students and putting it in the pockets of others, and it doesn't really make sense to continue it.
Brief follow-up.
In the interest of time, I'll just say no. With about a minute left, Senator Ariza.
Michael Ariza, Southside. So, Scott, is it 20% of what I pay in tuition as an out-of-state student? Or is the percentage different?
The percentage, there are two different types of tuition that people pay. There's statutory and there's designated. Statutory for in-state students is $50 per semester credit hour. And that can't be increased by the regents, that can't be increased by anyone but the legislature. For out-of-state students, the reason their tuition bill is much higher is because that statutory tuition is also much higher. I'm not sure what the exact number is, but I know it's in the hundreds per semester credit hour. And then there's designated tuition, which I believe is the same for every student, which is about $126.55 per semester credit hour. And that's what the Board of Regents can increase or decrease. And that's where the 20% comes from. It's not 20% of your total tuition bill. It's 20% of that $126.55, which is something like 65% of the total tuition in-state students pay, and a lower percentage of the students, the percentage out-of-state students pay.
With that, we'll now move into a period of debate on this bill, on the tuition set-aside opposition bill. Those wishing to debate for it. Senator Landry.
Howdy, Austin Landry, College of Education. So, I received $2,000 in scholarships for this year. That's a big deal. That's the most I've ever received. And both of those scholarships came $1,000 from each of my parents' employers. It's solely based on me. Any scholarship that I have to put how much my daddy makes, I don't get it. No one cares that he pays over half his income in taxes, or that he lives in a different state than his family. I never really get to be compared to just my accomplishments, except these two scholarships. And so my $2,000 is huge to me. And then I get an email that says, hey, guess what, your $2,000, a lot of it you don't get for you. And that really bothered me because it was my personal money. I'm lucky my parents pay my tuition. So it bugs me that their money is taken and not used for their child. But when it was actually mine, I really felt like it super hit me. And it is a big chunk of what I earned
That's Allison. Guys, not to beat a dead horse, but my situation's a lot like Allison's. Guys, I come from a small town and my parents, neither one of them went to college, so I'm the first person in my family who's got to do so. But in order to do that, for the past 20 years, my dad's had to go out and bust his butt so that I could go to college and do something he didn't get to do. And it was a slap in his face whenever I had to call him up last semester and tell him, hey Dad, guess what? $121 because I took a couple hours here texting him last year. X amount of dollars went to go pay for somebody else's education. And to people who are truly middle class, who don't qualify for FAFSA and still have to bear that huge tax burden, it's really not fair to us because we're the people who are going out and busting our butts, and yet we have to finance somebody else's education. And it's not feasible. We can't keep raising this tax on students. That's what this is. It's not a fee. It's a tax, and it's being redistributed to other people. And my parents send me to college. They don't send anybody else. We shouldn't make your parents send anybody else to college. You're the only one that should have college. So vote for this one because it's the right thing to do.
With that to debate against, Senator Womack.
I really actually agree with most of the sentiments in this bill, and I agree with most things that Senator Davenport and Senator Allison said. I just want to call your attention to something that's been creeping. I don't think it's fair that we have to pay a little more sum to help financial aid. And I think I talked to Clark just a second, and it's hard to get a straight answer out of financial aid as to exactly where this money's going. I would like to stood up and supported people and said, I'm one of the students that you are paying for, but I don't actually know if I am or not, which is one of the problems I have with this bill. I don't know exactly where this money is going. And until we have that, I kind of question passing this piece of legislation right now. Until we know exactly where it's going, until we can actually pin down financial aid and get a straight answer out of them, because I don't want to take a stance that we might later regret if we know, oh wait, now the money is going over here, well we actually kind of support that. Until we know exactly where the money's going, we can't really say whether we support it or not. And then also the second thing that I have a little bit of objection to is that I don't understand the idea that we don't want to pay for other people to go to school, but I do think we have to think about our fellow Aggies that might not be able to afford to go to school, that go to school based on this. So the sentiment that you're voicing about, my parents pay for me, or, I am here because of this, we have to think about the people that are also less fortunate as well. And I don't necessarily think that giving them more money is the way to go about it. I just really want to caution you on that sentiment, that we make sure we help other people as well, because there are people that are less fortunate, and there are people that need an education as well. We can do our part. Now, I don't think that this tuition set aside is accurate, so I'll probably end up voting for this piece of legislation. I just want to call your attention to those two pieces, that we do have a situation where we don't know exactly where the money is going, and I want to make sure that we're not necessarily thinking to ourselves, this is my money, get your hands off my money. We think to ourselves, what's best for everybody? And I think what's best for everybody, not necessarily is to keep the money for themselves, but to lower the cost of attendance for everybody. So if that's the sentiment, if you want to lower the cost for everybody, then I applaud you and I vote for this bill, but I want to make sure that you're not thinking, get your hands off my money, because that's the wrong sentiment. That's not what the A&M family is all about. So thanks again.
There's a motion on the floor to move to previous question and vote on this legislation. Multiple seconds. All those in favor of moving to previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
And the chair, the ayes do have it. We will now move into a period of voting on this bill. Senator Davenport.
I'd like to move, and it might be already standard operating procedure, but I'd like to do a ballot vote on this.
That is standard operating procedure. With that, Chair Sparsen. Okay, with that, we'll now move into a ballot vote. That's the way, that is standard operating procedure. Speaker Rowan is distributing the ballot. Please stay in relative order.
So this will still appear on the website and stuff. It's just a more private, not having to call your name out.
You have to think for yourself.
Scott, when are we getting clickers? Okay, and a motion just write tuition bill, like anything that lets us know set aside opposition. And be sure you write your name and your obvious address.
What's the bill number, Scott?
6319. 6319.
While y'all are still writing down your vote, we'll move on to the next piece of legislation unless there is a motion on the floor. Senator Boyd?
Madam Speaker, I move to postpone indefinitely
Everyone please stay in order.
Senate Bill 63/27, the Silver Taps Qualification Act. This motion would in effect kill the bill forever. This motion requires a second, it's debatable, and needs a majority vote to pass.
Point of order,
State your point.
isn't that bill in committee?
Yes, this kills a bill in committee. Any bill that is property of this Senate anywhere.
With that, is there a 1/6 second? Please raise your placards. We're not doing an against for this, I just need a 1/6 second so we can. That is more than a 1/6 second. And Senator Pulliam, is this a debatable motion?
Yes, ma'am.
With that, we'll now move into, a debate on this motion to postpone indefinitely the Silver Taps Qualification Act. Those wishing to debate for it? Senator Pulliam?
Justin Pulliam, opposed. All right, Alex, so basically what I'm trying to do here, for once, is to shorten our meeting by about 45 minutes to an hour. Because what's going to happen is if we don't pass this motion right here, there's going to be a motion made to bring this bill out of committee. And that'll be a long debate, and then we're going to vote whether we should bring it out of committee. Hopefully it would come out, maybe it wouldn't. If it stays in committee, myself and my fellow OR members, especially our chair, are going to continue to be very stressed out about this because this has been very stressful. This has been very tolling on a lot of people in OR, a lot of people at this university, a lot of people in SGA, and it's time to just get this over with. I believe, and I think many of my colleagues will agree with me, that this is not something the Senate really needs to be talking about. This isn't our duty. So why waste time worrying about this? We heard today that most people are against this bill. This is a really easy way. Just go ahead and get it off of our plate. Save 45 minutes, lots of confusing debates and votes tonight. Let's see. And also this is showing the school a strong showing that we don't think this is good. We don't think this is Senate's responsibility. We think tradition is important at this school. I think tradition is important at this school. So basically, by voting for this kills the bill forever. You'll never have to worry about it again. Chair Thornburg will never have to worry about it again. And I'd like to urge you all to vote. Just simple majority, real easy vote. And I'm going to yield to Allison Landry.
Howdy, Allison Landry, College of Education. Recently, the student body president vetoed a bill, and we voted to not overturn the veto because that bill, I didn't vote that way, but that bill, the Senate believed that was overstepping a branch of Student Government Association. Now, Traditions Council, I don't feel, has to listen to what we tell them to do. So why should we pass a bill or even debate on a bill that they don't want us to pass and just annoy another branch of Student Government Association? We're not over them, so we shouldn't pretend like we are. Thanks again.
With that, to debate against Senator Grosvenor.
Greg Grosvenor, okay. I don't know about you guys, but the most fun I have in a Senate meeting is not the first 2 hours when we listen to presentations. It's debating on legislation that actually matters to constituents. If we really want to send a message, we'll vote this out of committee, we'll flesh it out, that's why these people are here, that's what they want to see. We'll flesh out the issue, we'll vote it down. We don't need to put our tail in between our legs and run back to committee and say, oh, let's never talk about this issue again. This is obviously an issue we need to talk about. It's going to happen with future legislation. We shouldn't just kill the legislation before we even get to talk about it. I think we owe it to these people. We owe it to Toby to talk about them. We owe it to everyone in this room and our constituents to actually flesh out this bill and not just vote it down to save 45 minutes for Justin Pulliam. With that, I yield to Mark Womack.
Howdy. I agree with everything Greg Grosvenor said. Further than that, I want to advise you guys that the purpose of committee and the purpose of bringing things out of committee or killing them in committee is not to decide whether or not it's a good idea. It's to decide whether or not it's ready. This issue is clearly ready. Please do not talk about the one thing that people care about the most this year. We've seen a whole slew of people come before us and say their opinion, mostly for, or mostly against this bill, some for. We need to talk about this issue. It's extremely important. I am not going to vote for this bill, but I think this bill deserves to be talked about because it's so important to people, and our constituents deserve to have their opinions expressed by and large. Don't just save time and wash your hands of this issue. This is extremely important to our constituents, and we need to honor that importance by talking about this issue. I mean, think of all the other things we spend an ungodly amount of time talking about, and the one thing we want to actually come to Senate meetings and hear us talk about, we just dismiss the motion. That's completely inappropriate. We need to talk about this issue.
With that, Senator Robertson.
Howdy guys. I actually find this very appropriate if we just kill this right now. It's not our job to decide who gets honored at silver taps. The university already has that set. Let them do it. Let Traditions Council do their jobs. Let Aggies everywhere just kill this right now. We have no need talking about it. I understand everybody has a passion for it. Everybody's like, why not, why not, why not, why for, everything, but we have no place in this. Let it die. And I'll yield to Senator Bowman.
Thank you, Senator. Anyways, guys, everyone has their minds made up about this issue. Let's not fool ourselves. Let's not fool ourselves into spending about an hour worrying about something that we've already heard about, that we already have our eyes made up about. This is bad bull. This is your chance to show the school right now. We think this is such bad bull that we're trying to interfere with tradition that we're going to go ahead and just kill this bill for good, really quickly, right here. Majority vote yes for this motion. I move previous question.
There's a motion on the floor to move to previous question. To remind the body, this would, if this motion passes, it would postpone the bill indefinitely. With that, multiple seconds. All those in favor of moving to previous question, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Moving in the chair, the ayes do have it. We will now vote on whether or not to postpone indefinitely the Silver Taps Qualification Act.
Move for a roll call vote.
There's a motion on the floor for a roll call vote. Is there a second? Multiple seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
It's not a vote, it's.
Oh, it's 1 6 everyone hold up your placards if you wish to second this. That's more than 1 6. We'll take a roll call vote. Scoot around.
Myself, against. Chair Thornburg.
For.
Swanson. Against. Haberman. Russo. For. McDuffie.
Against.
Bell.
For.
Zoller. Zoller. Sheffield.
Against.
Bradley.
For.
Webb.
Against.
Hendler. Hendler. Whitaker.
For.
Robertson.
For.
Touch.
Against.
Pulliam.
Boy.
Latham.
For.
Beatty.
For.
Davenport.
Against.
Heber.
Yes.
Landry.
For.
Logston. Logson. Smith.
Against.
Barron.
For.
Young.
Against.
Verdigay.
Against.
Menard.
For.
Weathers.
For.
Weathers.
For.
Sullivan.
For.
Brown.
For.
Olson.
Against.
Liska.
For.
Pena.
For.
Stevens.
Against.
Smith. Fitz.
For.
Munson. Munson. Wilson. Wilson. Harris.
For.
Ariza.
4.
Becerra. Becerra. Coulter.
Against.
McDonald.
Against.
Womack.
Against.
Sullivan.
Abstain.
Scoggins.
Against.
Grossenbauer.
Against.
Hilton.
For.
Nidegger.
Against.
Rogers.
Against.
Johnson.
Against.
Lord.
For.
Rooney. Rooney. Kulak.
For.
Landis.
For.
Nietzsche.
For.
Crumpley. Crumpley. Lamarche. Lamarche. Crow.
For.
Harris.
Against.
Riley.
For.
Lang.
For.
Lawson.
For.
Bender.
For.
Murad.
For.
Riker.
Against.
Kirk.
Against.
Cox.
For.
Cowdery.
Abstain.
While we're waiting on that, we will continue with old business and move to SB 6312, the New Student Conference Voter Registration Initiative Bill. Will the bill authors please come forward? Stay in order. We Senator Barron.
Howdy.
Howdy.
This is New Student College Voter Registration Initiative bill. It's made surrounds through EA, and Clark and I believe this is a very good bill that can benefit College Station body in general and really help turn out election voters. So, whereas one, the Student Association, and then PO seeks the opportunities for members of the student body to register to vote and encourages those students to take part in upcoming elections. Our elections, student bodies really lack a prominent role in the electoral process, and here's the basic idea. We're going to work with the new student conferences and Office of New Student Programs to get a voter registration card in their packet along with all of their stuff they get. They're in a prime situation, they're coming on campus, they're signing stuff there with their parents, they're doing walkthrough on how to fill out a lot of official documents at once. So we're going to take this opportunity to try to get as many registered voters as possible, because the big push in College Station is we don't have that many students registered to vote. So instead of doing this during election time, taking care of this at one giant swoop at the beginning of the year. Okay, Clark and I, it's not going to be we write the bill and we push it off to them as their initiative. We're going to help them and definitely get everything lined up. The information we want to these students to hear, because we don't want them to just get a sheet of paper. We want them to get the registration cards and then an explanation of how they can help the College Station government, local government, and how this impacts our future. You kind of walk them through this process, so not sitting there staring at a blank book. We basically will head up the whole printing and filing for them, just giving them the stuff to put in the bags, and our names will be on this bill to help to smooth out that process once we vote on this, if it passes. So, there it is. So finally, if this bill passes, we give this bill to the interim director and Reber and the coordinator and associate vice president. We sit down and talk to them just to smooth everything out and get everyone on the same page.
With that, are there any questions? Senator Scoggins?
Senator Scoggins off campus. Great bill. I just want to know, have you spoken with the Office of New Student Programs and outlined a process by which they can communicate with you, like it says in Enacted 2?
Yes, the Office of New Student Programs says they're willing to cooperate. They just need the information to put in their packets. That means we've got to get all the voter registration cards, get the information sheets we want to attach to them, and then that'd be delegated under the EA chair, right now Clark Caperton, and then it'd be assigned for whoever was assigned responsibility for the next EA chair also, if they wanted to continue this. And then we're talking to them as long as we get get everything stapled and given them, they can gladly put it in that packet.
Brief follow-up. Have you also outlined a process for them to send it back in so that they will be registered?
Well, just to add on to that, we have it. This bill gets multiple people on the same page. This is a common interest that we share, a common desire that we want to increase the options or increase the availability for students to register to vote. So this merely is just a starting point. We want to sit down, those of us, with these people and outline a plan and decide who's going to be responsible for what and how we can best work that out. We want to work with the Secretary of State's office to order to get mass quantities of voter registration cards sent in over the summer, so that we can be prepared when these new student conferences come around, both in the summer months and also in the winter months when they have the transfer students come in.
So,
Also,
in regards to
no, I answered your question. I'm sorry. Robert, once they get the registration cards in their hands, they just have to put it in the mail to officially file to be a registered voter.
Okay, thank you. And that's outlined. That's outlined in the information.
Yes, that'll definitely be.
Senator Landry?
Howdy, Austin Landry, College of Education. In my time registering people to vote in this campus, it's been brought to my attention that people don't generally know that if you register to vote in College Station, you're no longer registered to vote in your hometown. So can you add in your little, when you go meet with people about what your plan is, can you tell people that you can't vote twice?
Absolutely.
It's not common knowledge anymore.
Definitely will. If anyone has any other recommendations or tidbits of information they'd like to add, or just help us rough out this information sheet that are stated facts we want to go with the registration card, great.
by all means. So it's something to think about.
And luckily, the state is actually kind of evolving the voter registration card they currently have, so it's providing us more information, making it a little bit easier to understand, kind of answering some of those questions. So that may be something that will be addressed in the new ones that will come out in the coming years.
Are there any further questions? Senator Harris?
Just a quick question, because I know we're in a budget thing, and it may be something little, but how much would it cost for us to make, let's say, however many students, 8,000 copies of this piece of paper or pages to be stapled and be stapled and put in it? Like, I know it may not be that big of a cost, but just something that we coming out of students' budget, or where would that exactly come from?
Logistics behind registration cards themselves are paid for by the state. We're currently working on how big we want this card, the information, how much information we want on it. So that definitely concerns as the cost comparison. Like if we have a full sheet of paper with 15 different things they need to know, that's a lot more expensive than taking a sheet of paper and having 16 little cutouts with information on it. So that's something we've talked about. I haven't run any actual numbers or run the algorithms as to how much that's going to cost, but we definitely can and get back to you.
And another idea we have is to print off like a website, just on a little small sheet of paper and like a paper clip or staple it to it. As a website that they could go to, an A&M website that could give them some more feedback, or even a state website that would give them answers to those questions and also provide a phone number in the event that they were confused. So we're trying to kind of consolidate there.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, before we move to a period of debate on this bill, the chair will make the body aware of the following motion. Sorry about that. The Silver Tax Qualification Act has been postponed indefinitely with a vote of 32 for, 25 against, and 3 abstaining. Stand order. With that, we will now move into a period of debate on SB 6312, the NSC Voter Registration Initiative Bill. Those wishing to debate for? Chair Russo?
Chair Russo, Student Services. This is a no-brainer, guys. So just vote for this bill. It's always great to get students out to vote and get us politically aware. That's it. I yield to the floor.
Are there any wishing to debate against on this bill? Seeing none, Senator Davenport?
Madam Speaker, is it in order for me to still request a ballot vote?
Since a ballot vote is always the standard operating procedures, then yes, but Chair Capington did ask for a voice vote
I'll withdraw that.
with Senator Lane.
Yeah, I move for a voice vote.
Please stand.
I move for voice vote.
There is a motion on the floor for a voice vote on this piece of legislation. Multiple seconds. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
All those wishing to pass SB 6312, the NSC Voter Registration Initiative Bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. And then pin the chair, the ayes have it. With that, we'll now move to SB 6334, the Northgate Pedestrian Improvement Project Position Bill. On a separate note, let's try to keep bill names as short as possible, so I don't have to.
Howdy. Howdy. All right. Many of you saw this bill already, especially if you came to EA. We've got an opportunity to work on it a little bit. Scott and I made a few changes. A couple things I'll highlight is this was the Northgate Pedestrian Improvement Project Support Bill. We've now changed that to Position Bill. In essence, what we've said here is that based on scientific surveys conducted by the Department of Student Life Studies, the students on the whole are in favor of most of the projects that are going to be taking place here at the Northgate District. Pretty much what we're doing here is we've outlined that students are in favor of most of the projects. The students do disfavor, though, the closing of Houston Street. So at this point, let's be honest, it's really not going to change anything. The city's not going to go back and overturn the closing of Houston Street to become a pedestrian mall, but at least we've done our job to represent students. We have represented the opinion of students, and so I agree with Scott that that was an accurate change. The highlighted in pinkish purple here denotes that it has been removed since it was last on there, so just a very minor change. In this bill, we have at the end for it to be presented to members of the College Station City Council and to the Texas Department of Transportation, and hopefully it will find its way to the people who are currently leading the project. So if you have any questions, be happy to take them.
With that, are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll now move into a period of debate on this legislation. Those wishing to debate for? Senator Harris?
It's a good deal.
Go for it.
Any wishing to debate against? Seeing none, chair deems debate one-sided. We will now move into a period of voting on this legislation.
Madam Speaker, I move for a voice vote.
There's a motion on the floor for a voice vote in multiple seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Independent chair, the ayes have it. We will now take a voice vote on this. All those wishing to pass SB 6334, the Northgate Pedestrian Improvement Project Position Bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Independent chair, the ayes have it. This legislation is passed. With that, we'll now move into new business. Will the bill authors of SB 6338, the Historic District Parking Bill, please come forward? And this is also designated as emergency legislation, so this will be voted on right after the presentation.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Okay. As Hillary noted, this is considered emergency legislation. You heard, in particular, Dr. Nichols mention this tonight during his presentation. I'm going to go ahead and kind of run through here, given that this is new and is emergency legislation. So, pretty much, it talks about us wanting to really build a relationship with the city. And the city of College Station has proposed various parking restrictions in the neighborhood south of Texas A&M University between George Bush Drive and Holloman Drive, here and after referred to as the Historic District. So it's pretty much this whole neighborhood here on the south side of campus. Can you scroll down a little bit, please? Thank you. And, okay, so there's a lot of students that live in this area, and pretty much there are a lot of students in this area that aren't necessarily against the new parking restrictions that the city is proposing in this area, but they are against the fact that students have not been really welcomed to the table to be part of this conversation. I can't comment as to whether the other citizens and the families that live in this neighborhood feel welcome to the table or not, but I'm not here to represent them just as you're not either. So the fact is, students have not really been approached by any means that live in this area. I live in that neighborhood. Nothing was put on my door, nothing was sent to me. As a student here who has a fairly good working relationship with the city, I was not made aware of this. And so in essence, what we're saying here is we're not saying necessarily that we strictly oppose the plans that they have in place, but we oppose them temporarily because students haven't had an opportunity to bring their voice to the table. So the hope is that we will pass this tonight. The city is going to be considering this, it's my understanding right now, at next Monday. And so we would like to pass it tonight. That way, a few of us can work together and go meet with city members later this week. That way, we can lay it before them that we want to work with you guys, and we want to feel a sense of openness and accessibility, so that students' voices can be heard, and that we can have an opportunity to make the students that live in that neighborhood aware.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Marshall Garner, I'm the Legislative Relations Commissioner. Just to echo what Clark said. One of the people on my commission stumbled across this issue in doing some research on local issues, which was very alarming to me that this is not something, like Clark said, it was brought to us as students. I live in the Historic District. Clark lives in the Historic District. A lot of us live in the Historic District. This is something that affects a lot of us. I would be really frustrated if people were not allowed to park in front of my house, if I wasn't allowed to park in front of my house. So I think this is something that is really important that we pass tonight so that we can start meeting with the city staff and the city council and really voice the student opinion on this, because this is a huge issue, and I'm very alarmed that we were never brought up, that this was never brought up to us, or that we were never notified in any capacity. So I encourage you to support this.
With that, are there any questions? See none, we'll now move into a period of debate on this legislation. Those wishing to debate for it, Senator Lang.
Evan Lang, off campus, it's a pretty simple issue. People should be able to park in front of their houses, so vote for it.
Those wishing to debate against? Seeing none, chair deems debate one-sided. There's a motion on the floor for a voice vote on this legislation. Multiple seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Independent chair, the ayes do have it. We'll now move into a period of voting through voice vote on this legislation. Those wishing to pass SB 6338, Historic District Parking Bill, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Independent chair, the ayes do have it. We will now continue on with new business to SB 6336, the Student Regent Enfranchisement Bill. These bill names.
Howdy.
Howdy.
All right, so I've got two bills for you, but the first one is the Student Regent Bill. I kind of briefly talked about it last week or last meeting, excuse me, about Our student regent at Texas A&M does not have the power to vote, has the power to do everything else that a regent does, but does not have the power to vote. So I think it's very important as a student regent, to have that power to vote. So this is a bill simply saying, this actually has to be changed to the state legislature. There's actually a bill to author that. It talks about it, a bill to make that happen. This is a bill to support that bill. So we'll be taking this to Austin, kind of show student support behind that. So that's really kind of self-explanatory, I guess. Are there any questions?
Senator Brown?
Senator Brown, so what's the point of the student regent guy if he can't vote on anything, just wants his opinion?
Yes, voice his opinion in meetings, also in open session, they can ask questions. Like I said, they can do everything that a regent can, but vote. So this is kind of just be like the last thing.
They even get the parking pass.
Yeah. And the apartment.
Stay in order. Senator Scoggins.
If this bill that's in the House were to pass, when would it go into effect? Would it be under Crescentio's term, or?
No. The way I understand it, no.
Okay.
By the time it gets to the governor's desk and things like that, I think it would be passed this time.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the External Affairs Committee. Will the bill authors of SB 6337, the Higher Education Budget Cut Opposition Bill, please come forward? Thanks.
All right, well, howdy. This bill is simply saying, kind of again like we talked about last week, that the state of Texas is taking a huge chunk of the budget from higher education. This is simply saying that we oppose that as students at Texas A&M, because I think it sends a strong message to future students in the state of Texas, and also outside the state of Texas, to say, you know what, you could come to school here in Texas, or you may want to go to college here in Texas, but we also think that's probably one of the best places we can take money from. And so this is a bill just simply saying that we don't agree with that. We definitely want to take that to Austin. So that's kind of self-explanatory also. Are there any questions about that?
Are there any questions? Senator Smith?
Senator Smith, calling you more. This is directed towards you, Jacob and Clark. Y'all know of the state representatives that are in favor of this bill also, who are against cuts to higher education. Who are the state representatives that you know of? They're in line with us.
I would just say that, and you can add, I would just say that there's a number of members of the Texas House and Senate that are not in favor of making budget cuts to higher education, but I think the argument that they're going to hear is that their backs are kind of up against the wall, and so we've got to go send a strong message. And that Marshall and I met with the Vice President for Governmental Relations here and the Vice Chancellor for Governmental Relations for the A&M system, and we talked about, we're starting to formulate how we need to best make that argument, as to why they should limit or reduce the amount of cuts coming to higher education. And that's going to be, I think Jacob's doing very well on this. This is probably one of the most critical things that will go on our legislative agenda for the year.
I think General Weber said a great point earlier. The state legislator, administrators, they don't intend to do this, but especially the state legislators sit around and go, how can we get more money from higher education? Well, that's pretty simple, just raise tuition. And so that's kind of what we're really advocating against, is saying, let's figure out another option besides just jacking up our tuition through the roof.
And Marshall and myself, through legislative relations, we've been involved in this process, and we're going to continue to be in this process because we will be taking this to Austin. Please come to committee meetings, the External Affairs Committee meeting. We would love to sit down and talk to you about these issues.
With that, are there any further questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to both the External Affairs and Academic Affairs Committee, so it will be in both. With that, will the bill authors of SB 6339, the Health Benefit Plans Portal, please come forward?
So this bill deals with a couple of different issues, but what it centers around is the health center, what its function is, where its money should go, and how much of that should come from student fees. So in the last legislative session, Fred Brown, our representative to the House of Representatives in Austin, introduced a bill that would make it so that the health center had to accept private insurance. And that bill passed in the legislature, and then it passed both houses of Congress, and then was vetoed by Governor Perry. So what we're asking is that they pass that bill again, basically. What that bill would do is it would make it so that they would go in the direction of a hybrid system for Butyl and for all of the health services on campus, where they would still provide very low cost or free, like very basic services, like doctor visits, just if you have a sniffle, go in and get your free checkup, stuff like that. That would still be there. But in the case of things like x-rays, stuff you have to pay money for anyway, when you go there, like getting bandages, stuff like that, all of those things, when you go there, you have to pay to get that done. And you have to pay the full price. And you can't even use your insurance, or if you're still on your parents' insurance. So we're asking them to change that. We feel like that would greatly increase the revenue of the health center and allow them to support some of their other objectives. What they're talking about doing instead is raising the fee that we pay to the health center from $71.25 a semester to about $125 a semester. And then what they want to do with that money is they want to build a new health center on top of Lot 61 on West Campus. It would basically be a super Butyl. And so this bill also opposes that fee increase, and it also opposes the legislature increasing the cap on that fee. So the cap right now is $75, and that cap is there to make sure that the university can't increase it further than that. So what they would have to do to increase it above $75 is actually go to the legislature and get them to write a bill increasing it by another $50, and we're asking the legislature not to do that. Y'all have anything to add?
Well, real quickly, just a little background on why this bill passed. Originally, the one that was introduced by Representative Brown last session, and then vetoed by Perry. Basically, the bill, as it was in its former form, required the universities to use a third-party billing system that basically had all these parameters and narrowed it down to like one third-party billing system. When we talked to Dr. Denenbaum last week, she had reassured us that we were fully capable of operating this entire switch to a hybrid program completely on our own with the staff we have at A&M. So we do not want that third-party system as part of this whole equation. That would be part of the new bill we're asking to write.
And the only other thing I would add is if we don't pretend that this is an easy issue, it is certainly a complex issue. There's a lot of information, so you may be kind of confused tonight. That's okay for those of you who came to our health fee meeting we had, I guess, last week with Dr. Denenbaum and Mr. Reber. You got a lot of insight. The thing I want to add that's most important is that this Friday at 9:30, some of us are going to have a private consultation and take a tour of Butyl and really discuss the options as far as what this looks like going forward. So if you can come on Friday at 9:30, there's also going to be some other meeting times the next week. I know Hillary sent that out, but we'll definitely follow up with you guys again. Really try to get involved in this if this is something you think you have an interest in. I mean, it's really important to students.
With that, we'll now move into a period of question and answers. Senator Barron.
Scott, the new health center, did they describe anything that this new super health center could offer students that Butyl or the new Bush Health Center opened on they'll be open on Riverside sometime soon, and the actual hospital here in College Station couldn't offer?
They didn't go into a great deal of specificity, and I know this is something that's been out there for a while, but basically what it comes down to is that the real Butyl, like what we have now, is getting very old, and they're paying so much in renovations that it makes more sense to just do what we did with the NSC and basically tear it down and build a brand new building. Now, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and to further that, basically know that no set-in-stone, clear-cut decision has been made on this at all. So as of now, there are no plans to create a new type of Butyl system. It is an idea that has been thrown out there if they were to raise the fee substantially. From what I understood Dr. Denenbaum saying was that this new Butyl facility would basically take several different departments that are already working together and house them in one place. So they would take, not only would the health center be housed there, but all of the people who work in the counseling services, all of the different services and medical related services that are offered to students would basically be housed in this building. The idea being if a student is walking in the front door of the center, someone sitting in the waiting room doesn't know whether they're going to see a psychologist or if they're going to see a doctor, or ladies if they're going to the women's clinic, or it would basically all be in one area, in house in one place.
And the vice president's office has told us this is purely a student decision. The administration is fine with whatever we want to do. So that's why we want you guys to get involved, because this is a big decision for us to make. We want you guys to be involved. I mean, it's purely, I mean, it really comes down to what the student leaders end up voicing on behalf of students. So the Senate's going to play a very big role in how it shakes out.
Senator Pulliam?
Justin Pulliam Hills. In the state law, it actually, there's a provision allowing a student referendum about whether the money for the student health fee should be used for a publicly ran health center or a privately run health center. Have y'all explored maybe bringing forward a student referendum about whether this money should be used for a private or public facility?
Sure, I mean,
Yeah, and just from our meeting with Dr. Dannerbaum, it sounded like switching to a fully private run health center with no health fee is a really risky operation in a higher education environment where you can't necessarily predict the amount of business you're going to have like you can in the private sector. And you're basically contingent on how many people are willing to use your facility, and it doesn't separate you from any other doctor college station. So I think that was kind of her concern in switching to a fully privately funded insurance-based.
And the only thing I'd add to that is she did mention specifically, she said a good majority of what students pay in the health fee goes to pay for unexpected instances when meningitis outbreaks, when H1N1 outbreaks, when there's bats in whatever dorm there were bats in, everybody had to get shots. I mean, it goes towards kind of those unexpected situations that arise that they have to be ready to respond to, or otherwise we can the whole campus gets sicker or worse, you know.
So student health issues at large.
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
The state law I was trying to say is actually it's the fee's still there, but it's privately run instead of publicly run, but the fee's still.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not talking about the fee still being there, but it's being
whether
that's
it's
what
run by the
hybrid
state
system
or
is.
run by.
Well, not quite. The hybrid system is basically, it's still run by an employee of Texas A&M University, but they have to work with private insurers. So, but that's definitely something to consider. I'm actually not really, I mean, if they want to have a referendum, I say go for it.
But then we feel that it's important because it is such a complex issue that we will need to seek options to allow students to become well educated on this so that they'll understand. I mean, it's a complex issue. We've sat through multiple meetings and there's still a lot we don't know. So we're in the learning process. We want to do whatever's best for students.
But, Justin, do you know that Dr. Dannerbaum and Mr. Reber are more than willing to help us and have been more than gracious in helping us through this process and understand exactly what our health center looks like and what it does?
With that, Senator Vertigan?
Senator Vertigan, engineering. I had a question about how you plan on, or how you plan on paying for the new facility, I guess, just without raising the fees or anything, how are you going to?
Well, this is a plan for paying for a new facility without fees, and there are a lot of discussions to be had about if we do need a new facility, where it would go. I mean, I would personally advocate for putting it where the old Buell is, but I mean that.
Essentially, from what I can gather, and this is just myself, that if there were plans to create and build the new facility, that the fee, they would ask the legislature to raise the fee cap, and then they would also raise the health center fee to eventually compensate them for the building of the facility. So fees would.
You're looking right now. You have a 71.25 semester fee. It would switch to about 125 if you wanted to build a brand new facility. And it'd be about 10 to 15, maybe $20 less than that per semester if you wanted to renovate Buell. The problem with renovating Buell is that you still have to operate a health facility, or building all new Buell altogether. You still have to operate a health facility that's accessible to students year round. So that creates a lot of problems. Buell's structured in a way that used to be an old hospital, so the hallways are very wide. All the plumbing and electricity has to be done. It's a major hazard right now, so they are exploring the options. And then as far as the fee kicking in, though, you're looking at about 4 to 5 years before the facility is actually built and finished. The fee would not kick in until the doors open for students. So again, I know that this is easy for us to say, and I'm not taking a stance for it necessarily, but what I'm saying is in the long run, we've got to start looking for options that are going to be sustainable for increased growth on campus. Buell's not going to, 10 years from now, we're going to have something done at Buell. We're going to have more students. The building's going to be older. I mean, so we've got to start thinking long term. This isn't about us so much as future Aggies. What can we do to create a good environment for them? So.
All right, and really quickly, I'd just like to add that basically what we're presenting here is a third way. We don't necessarily have to keep the old facilities and keep a low fee. I mean, keeping fees low, I think is a really purpose, and that's what we we don't want to increase the fee and get really great stuff. I think this is a way that we can increase services, but at the same time keep the fee where it is. And maybe even if revenue from private insurance is high enough, we can even decrease the fee, I think. And that would definitely be a huge accomplishment.
All right, with technically 4 more minutes left, but let's be mindful of our time. Senator Landry.
Allison Landry, College of Education. Would A&M be able to choose what insurances they accepted, or do they have to accept all students' health insurance?
I believe
Essentially, there's, what Dr. Jerome told us is there's over 900 different insurance policies at A&M amongst all of us. Like all of us that have private insurance, there's approximately 900 different ones that we create. And so, you said by basically entering into an agreement with the 3 big ones, Blue Cross Blue Shield,
United.
Yeah, Humana. So in other words, by going into negotiations with those top 3, you can knock out the majority of those plans. And that would probably be the initial path they would go down is entering into a relationship with those 3 insurance companies, and then that would compensate almost everyone.
Right, and once they get on the network with those 3, it's not necessarily, they would be able to add the other ones. Dr. Danton Dobbins actually worked in private healthcare before she ran her own practice, and so they do know the ins and outs of that system.
And again, that also is contingent upon the provision within the bill that may mandate the state health center to use a particular third-party system. So there's a lot of kind of give and take in this process, actually, to answer the question fully.
With that, Chair Thornburg.
Chair Thornburg, rules and regulations. Y'all mentioned how A&M can do their own billing. Do you think the legislature is going to keep in mind that maybe other universities are affected and not do their own billing?
It doesn't take an act of the legislator for us to switch to this program. We could right now, that's new information, we could right now decide we want to switch to a hybrid program, and the legislator wouldn't have to authorize that. So if we came to Dr. Dana Mom and we were like, we want to switch to this private sector, she'd say, okay, let's do it. And I'm fully capable. I have a lot of faith in Dr. Dana Mom and her staff. She was the #1 OBGYN in Oklahoma for several years, just for the record. So she has a lot of credibility, and she's ran her own practice, very successful. She's left a job making a whole lot of money. That profession makes a lot of money to come to a school like A&M and run our health center extremely effectively with great ideas. I have full faith that she can take on this.
She's been a very good steward.
Yes.
With that, are there any further questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the External Affairs Committee. Will bill authors of SB 6340, the Dual Credit Expansion Initiative bill, please support?
All right, howdy. Real quickly, I know we're getting to the end of the wire here, but this is an issue, dual credit, that we wrote on our Legislative Relations Commission, and we're bringing to y'all tonight. When I went to Austin a couple weeks ago and met with members of Dan Branch's staff, they said that they will almost indefinitely be filing a dual credit bill. I think all of us know that who were successful in the dual credit process from high school to college or unsuccessful in the dual credit transfer process from high school to college. We know that the system doesn't work very well. Your guaranteed hours that you don't receive in college, you don't really know like the process or what you're getting into when you start taking these classes in high school. I came in with 4 whopping hours to A&M, and I feel like I should have come in with more. So what this bill is looking at is asking the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board as well as legislators to look at creating a uniform system for transferring credit from high school to college. I think that's really important. And dual credit can save a lot of money on both of the spectrums by knocking out classes in high school that you would have to take at a 4-year institution like A&M. Saves families a lot of money. Students come to college more equipped to get on with their career and get through college at a reasonable speed. So pretty straightforward. Any questions?
Well, and also just to tag on to this, also what this initiative is essentially asking the legislature to do and asking state institutions such as Texas A&M forge those relationships with the junior colleges that there are in relative location to them. For example, our Blend Team program is one of the premier programs in the nation of its type, meaning that Texas A&M has extended that has extended the opportunity to students to dual enroll in both the junior college and the university level. And so it grooms the student to move on out of the junior college level and into the university scene. And so overall, for students who, can't necessarily afford a university level, college level education right out of high school, this is a great opportunity, and I think that it is worth investing some time into.
With that, are there any questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to both the External Affairs and Academic Affairs Committee. The chair would also make aware that the last bill introduced SB 6337, SB 6339, the Health Benefit Plan Support Bill, will be in both External Affairs and Student Services. So that will also be in two committees as well. Will the bill authors of SB 6341, the Tax-Free Textbooks Initiative Bill.
All right. Once again, this is another bill that came from LR. We kind of talk about this issue every year in the legislature. It's a huge issue. I'm really passionate about it. I think it would be a huge help to students. We're going to keep fighting for it until something happens. But this is a bill proposing a tax-free textbook program for students in Texas. I think we all agree that textbooks are an extreme part of our cost in higher education. It's something that we all struggle with in purchasing. The average college student spends $1,200 a year on textbooks. I think we all spend a lot more than that potentially. So this is basically asking that the legislature consider a tax-free textbook period where we can buy our textbooks at tax-free. A lot of other schools apply books, binders, backpacks, all that kind of stuff. There are tax-free weekends for that and weeks for that for lower education, which means we can capitalize on those as well. So I know that a bill will be filed about this. I would really love the support of A&M to go lobby for this and advocate for this, push for this in Austin this spring. So without further ado, any other questions?
And I will say, I'm sorry I keep tacking on to Marshall, this is actually an initiative that I'm very passionate about, and I'm bringing back before this body because I believe so strongly in it. 2 years ago when the legislature was in session, I was part of the team that went and lobbied the legislature for this exact issue. And so I'm very excited to be on Marshall's team and working with you guys and working on behalf of the students here at A&M to help us continue to get some kind of burden relief in the cost of higher education.
With that, are there any questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the External Affairs Committee. With the bill authors of SB 6342, the Summer School Funding Bill, please come forward.
Howdy. Okay. So I'll try to keep these two brief, but basically, the university, y'all know by now that the university has set aside $21 million for strategic initiatives, and I think it's our job, and that's happened, and I think it's our job as students to take a couple of clear positions on how that money should be spent so that Hillary, Jacob, and Crystal can take those recommendations to the Strategic Initiatives Committee and really advocate for our position and make sure that we don't come out on the bottom of the pyramid on this whole issue. And so I thought about it a lot. I talked with some people in my college and a lot of other representatives from the College of Engineering, and I encourage you guys to do the same for your caucuses. And I thought of two key initiatives that we should really push for. The first is summer school funding. The reason I'm worried about summer school is because I think it's a really easy thing for people to cut. I think a lot of colleges are cutting it. I know the College of Engineering has cut it quite a large amount. And I want to make sure that summer school is still available as an option to those students who can't necessarily fill their degree plans, and those students who are having trouble, especially as class sizes are increasing, as class hours are going into the night. I know there's already been talk of increasing the hours that classes happen up until 10:30 at night, I think.
So I don't have
and like using the rooms until then. So they're really putting the squeeze on students, and it's going to be harder than ever for people to finish school on time. So I think anything that gives students more options, that gives people more flexibility, is a very worthwhile thing for us to advocate for, and summer school does just that.
With that, we'll now move into period question and answer. Chair Caperton.
Chair Caperton, External Affairs. I was just wondering, I know we've kind of dealt with this on a few different bills, but would you be willing to designate at the end of the bill, since between now and the time to bring it back, who you'd like for this bill to go to specifically?
I sure will, but I will add as just a note of something, that like part of the reason I want government. We have 3 different people from all parts of student government, exec and senate, going to the committee, and I think it will really strengthen their position to have bills to take with them, like saying, this is student opinion, this is how students feel, and so this is what we're going to advocate for. Because 3 of the 19 people on the committee are from student government, and so that's power in and of itself. But this will also go to faculty senate, and I'll be consulting with Chris Esparza and Chris Lesher on who else in the faculty needs to be made aware of this.
Thank you.
With that, Senator Blaine.
Justin Poyntz, Senator Bowen, thank you for bringing up this bill. I just don't understand though, like the administration said that we need to cut instructors in the summer to save money so we can hire researchers. Why don't we just agree with the administration, be good students, and say we'll go somewhere else for summer school because we don't have enough money for instructors?
I mean, that's probably what's going to happen if we don't fund summer school. People will say, well, I'll just stay home for the summer, I'll go to my local community college, I'll take Texas Tech online. But I don't think that's something that we want to happen here. I think college station is a great place, even over the summer. Texas A&M is a great place. I've had the misfortune of not being able to be here for the last 2 summers. But I really do think summer school is important, and I think we need to make sure it continues to be funded.
Well, Scott, you sold me right there. I think this is just great.
That comment's out of order. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, this bill will be referred to the Academic Affairs Committee. Will the bill authors of SB 6343, the Budget Reallocation Flexibility Bill, please come forward?
Howdy. So the second initiative I wanted to advocate for was one of the things we talked about a lot in the Education First bill, that whole debate, and that we've been talking about a lot is that we want the big things we want to push for is to preserve faculty, to make sure that not as many people are being laid off and that we aren't losing sections. And I think the deans of the colleges, the administrations of the colleges are listening to us on that. And that's something they want to. They don't want to lay people off. They don't want to make their colleges worse. They don't want to make their rankings drop. And they know, I don't want to say better than we do, but they will know better than a committee of 19 people, all of whom have differing interests, where in their colleges they need to learn most in order to prevent faculty losses, to be able to keep the quality of their education. So what we're asking for in this bill is that when this money is handed out to the various colleges, and we don't have numbers in here telling how much to give to each, but just that let's give you that, those deans be given the flexibility to put the money where they think they need it most. So that we don't say, okay, College of Liberal Arts, here's $100,000, but you have to spend it on this that someone else thinks is important, and stuff like that. We want them to have the flexibility to make the right decisions for their colleges. So, with that, any questions?
Are there any questions? Seeing none, this will be referred to the Academic Affairs Committee. With that, are there any bills for open session? Seeing none, we'll now move into committee reports. Chair Thornburg.
We're done. We don't have anything except for Scott's bill. But that's easy, that's voting stuff, so. Yay, because there are sometimes.
Chair Thornburg.
Okay, at the last committee meeting, I asked the committee members to gather an opinion for the SLATE program. If you can keep doing that, email it back to me before next Wednesday, that would be great. Also, the AA Admissions Task Force needs a new chair. The last chair stepped down. So if you're interested in this position, let me know before the November 3rd meeting. Email me. On that same subject, the AA State Law Subcommittee, chaired by Senator Mark Womack, will likely be hearing 2 of the bills presented tonight. So if you're interested in attending that meeting and listening to those bills, contact him or myself to find out some dates of those meetings. And finally, because our fee meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday during the committee times, I need all AA committee members to email me all the days and times that are available next week so we can schedule our next committee meeting. Thanks again.
Chair Haverson.
Howdy. Howdy. All right, I will promise to follow up with everything that I mentioned here via email, but a couple things. One, thank you guys for your participation in the presentation. presentations by the council candidates. If you would like their contact information to follow up with them with a question or anything else, you can feel free to email me and I'll give you their personal email address so you can follow up with them. That takes me to my next thing, voting. It is now election season. It's time to vote. Pretty much everybody in here should know that voting happens where print copy is. It's the portion of the MSC that's still open down that way. Please, listen to me real quick. Please get out and tell students to vote. Encourage students to vote. Tell them where to find it. A lot of students have no idea where it's at, and if you don't, come talk to me and I'll help get that out. Also, you'll notice that we have a lot of bills that came up here tonight that went to EA. I want to tell you guys that these are all part of a bigger project, and it's the legislative agenda for SGA this year. I want to encourage you guys to get involved in that. Come to the EA meeting, even if you're not in the EA, you want to get involved in any of that stuff. Come along with it. We'll talk about it. Those are going to be really worked on hard this next week because they really, for our timeline purposes, are going to pass our next Senate meeting. And finally, going back to the health fee thing, we're having that meeting at 9:30 on Friday morning at the health center. If you'd like to come along, email me. I'll email all that information. But I want to encourage you guys to take part in that.
Stay in order. Thank you. Can you share your presenter? No, you're fine. Cheers. So.
Howdy.
Howdy.
We only have a couple things as far as legislation in student services right now. We got the health fee bill in committee now. And again, there's going to be a meeting about that tomorrow at 9:30 at Buell to give a tour. I'm sorry, not tomorrow, but Friday. Well, nearly tomorrow. But anyway, so that's going to be giving us some insight on how student health services operates, what some of their issues are, and provide some input into maybe possibly changing legislation. Also, we have the first parking ticket warning bill in committee right now, and there's going to be a meeting. I'm going to have a lunch meeting, myself and student services advocate Oliver Toma, basically exploring different options we have with getting the first parking tickets forgiven, whether that be with only having it during the first 2 weeks of school or only having it during the first 2 weeks of a permit, or different options that we have there, but some way to get a better communication plan with transportation services, make sure that people know the parking regulations and issues like that. So that and the Clayburgh crosswalk bill will be discussed at that meeting on Friday. So I'm just following up with that. Other than that, there's not really any new developing business. I had a meeting with Lala Howard about forming, she's the director of operations for the university, and that was mostly about the formation of a university committee that had to do with integrating all three areas of services that most affect students, and those are dining, transportation, and facilities. So combining those three. So if you're interested in any of these issues, again, come to the meeting on Wednesday. We're going to have it on Wednesday before the B meeting. And finally, I've chosen 3 subcommittee chairs that will come up for nomination next time.
Yes.
For 3 different subcommittees. Senator Brian McDonald for the Facility Services Subcommittee, Chair Eric Fitz for the Dining Services Subcommittee, and then finally Tyler Moquin, who is a confirmed non-senator member of the Student Services Committee for the Transportation Services Subcommittee. And that's all I have. Thanks again.
There you go. With that, Chair McDuffie.
Howdy. Thank you to all those who stand the opinion booths around campus. I realize that there are some improvements that need to be made, signs, communication, venues, and such like that. I would encourage all Senate members to use your resources, what with listservs and things like that, to let people know about opinion booths, to let people know about bills, to bring in opinions and stuff like that, so we can best get the votes on bills that need to be voted. I would also like to remind all senators that you do need 3 hours for the semester. So in November, we're going to have another round. We may do it a little bit differently by caucus, but in any case, you do need to get those hours under your belt. Lastly, there's a constituency affairs meeting this Sunday, 6 p.m. in the room right over there. Told us 146. Caucus students be there. I'll say it again. room 146, 6 p.m. this Sunday.
With that, we will have a brief period of announcements. Senator Davenport.
Okay, this might be new because we haven't had announcements in a really long time. Mainly because we've just been so bogged down. But, guys, early voting is, Clark's already said it, but I want to echo. Early voting is started. It started Monday and goes through October the 29th. Really important thing. Now, Clark can tell you this, but I can because I'm a senator. Guys, I think it's really important that we all vote for Bill Flores. Make sure he's our next congressman. I think it's very important. Second thing, if any of you are interested in supporting our local candidates, you can always come volunteer at my office, Victory, Texas. We have a few people who come out and do that phone bank for us, and we'd love to have you in these last few critical days of the election. And then last thing, tonight, after the Senate meeting, a couple of us are going to grab a bite to eat. It's something I encourage you all to do. It's a great way for us just to kind of, shoot the bull a little bit and get to know each other a little bit better. So if you got the time, come do it. Thanks for giving me. Fuego!
Are there any other announcements?
Beat the hell out of Kansas!
With that, we'll now very quickly move into executive reports.
Well, howdy.
Howdy.
I am filling in for Jacob tonight, giving the reports. I have a couple things that I want to start out and say. Great job tonight. I think this was one of the best meetings that we've had this year. I'm going to give a ring tag to Marshall Bowen and Clark Caperton for all the work they've done with Del Art. I want to also encourage y'all to keep raising the bar, keep pushing that the standard that we have here in student government higher by talking to your constituents, by getting that student feedback, by researching, research, and incorporate that into your bills. Make sure that we have the best possible student voice represented through the Student Senate that we can. I know y'all can do it. Let's keep working together. A couple things from exec. Jacob is continuing to go to meetings about the reallocation of funds here at the university. If you have any concerns or any thoughts on that, go talk to him. He is in his office quite a bit. Another thing is that myself, along with Speaker Pro Tem Scott Bowen, we serve on what is called the Council on Built Environment, CBE. And that council hears every single decision that affects facilities, things like what departments are in what buildings, what sidewalks ultimately get fixed, what roads get repaved, what new buildings are built. All of those types of things are run through CBE. And so if you have any concerns or any thoughts on any of those topics, talk to Scott or myself. I want to also take this time to present two opportunities for one person or possibly two people, hopefully two people, that would want to serve on sub-councils on the Council on Built Environment. The two that I have listed here is the Facilities Utilization Review Sub-Council and the Maintenance Subcommittee, excuse me. And so if you're interested in serving on those, they'll meet a couple times a semester, talk about all the same or similar topics that we talk about in CBE. And if you're interested, shoot Jacob an email at svp.tamu or at tamu.edu. And then reminder that we have the special Senate fee meeting next Wednesday. And so get ready for that and be on the lookout for emails with information about that. And finally, there was an email that Ray sent out earlier, Chair McDuffie, about textbooks. I'm the chair of the Chancellor Student Advisory Board this year, and we're trying to get a grasp about what to do with the rising cost of textbooks. And so all across the system level, all of the student governments at our other A&M campuses are reviewing this, and we want your feedback. We need at least 2,500 students to fill out the survey. So if you could please find that email and get your constituents to fill out that survey. It will close next Friday, so you have 1 week, well, a week and a half, but ideally a week to get that done.
And from Exec Council, that is about it. Thanks again, and y'all have a good night.
With that, Chief Justice David.
Howdy. I'm very excited for what might be the first ever report from the court. Usually I don't come and try to explain judicial court rulings, but I want to explain one of the consequences of a recent decision the court made in the case of Womack versus Chair Thornburg. And so basically what happened is that the case brought some scrutiny to the current Senate procedures about eligibility appeals. These are all kinds of eligibility, not just academic, but that's sort of mostly academic, I guess, is what you deal with. And so what the court decided is that the current process is unconstitutional, and that it doesn't reserve a senator's seat while they're filing an appeal to overturn SUAC's decision to consider them ineligible. And so because of that, they've issued, if you'd like to scroll down, 3 broad guidelines that should be incorporated into the Senate bylaws concerning the eligibility appeals process. So this will just kind of help get it done in writing and make sure that there's no confusion about the process in the future, and help avoid conflicts over things that don't need to turn into J-court cases. So I'd like to see the Senate leadership take this on. I'm happy to work with anyone who would like some help with that. So can I clarify for anything for anyone? Mr. Pullman, Senator Pullman?
Justin Morning Coles. I guess I'm just a little confused about this whole procedure. It's my understanding, I mean, unless this is just a suggestion, but it would be my understanding that for the J-court to rule something constitutional or needed to be changed, that someone would actually need to sue, I guess, I don't know, either the R chair or the Speaker Senate saying this is unconstitutional before that can be ordered to be changed by the court.
Well, in a sense, that's actually what this case was about. It was about the eligibility appeals process. But also, there's nowhere in the Constitution that says that the duties of the judicial court are limited to specific cases. Only that it's our job to interpret the Constitution. So while we are operating within the frames of what you would consider a case and problems that have arisen from a appeal or suit, as you put it, that's actually not our only constriction constitutionally.
Senator Womack.
Just clarification, just so everyone is aware of what actually happened. Right now, according to the testimony and the transcripts of Kyle Womack, the senator in question, he does have a GPR and has had the whole time a GPR above a 2.0 or the requirements of this body. Is that correct?
That's a separate issue about the case itself. And if you read the decision, it actually doesn't, academics weren't in question in that particular case. And if you wanted to talk about that further, I'd be happy to talk to you about it. I just want to talk to you specifically about the writ of mandamus that the court issued following the decision.
Bruce, follow-up?
In the interest of time, we're going to literally be kicked out of here in about 5 minutes. Chair Caperson.
Could you send out a summary analysis of what happened to members of Senate so that everybody can, in their own
That's
time?
what this is, and I sent it to the Senate leadership, so.
I can forward it out. Senator Harris.
Quick question.
Yes.
Does this reinstate Powell?
No, that's the ruling. This is the writ of mandamus. What you're asking about is the result of the case, which was already concluded and posted on the windows out there for a while. But no, Kyle Womack's not reinstated as a senator.
Senator Bland.
I'm still really confused. What is J-court going to do if we don't make these changes by December 1st?
Well, that would be another matter of the Senate's failure to comply with its constitutional duty.
So what would happen?
Well, I can't speculate about what the decision of the court would be.
With that, thank you. Really brief, like Johnson said, there will be a fee meeting next Wednesday at 7 p.m. in this room. It is required of all senators. Attendance will be taken and it applies to normal rules. So if you have an excuse, please send it to Scott Bowen. Also, sorry, real quick.
Does that mean no committee meetings?
Committee meetings will be, like I stated in the Senate email a couple of days ago, it will be redone up to the discretion of the chair. And also to echo what Chair Caperton said earlier, we will have a meeting with the Director of Student Health Services, Dr. Dannenbaum, on Friday at 9:30. If y'all want to meet in the SJ office at about 9:15, we'll walk over together. If you plan on attending, please let me know because they kind of want a number of the people going, and there will also be a couple more informationals next Monday, and I'll send out those times over the listserv. So everyone.
Howdy.
Howdy.
A few things I wanted to touch on quickly. Last meeting, I made an announcement about the registration form on the SGA website. Basically, you have to go on there, register as a member of SGA, and then sign an eligibility release. So since then, 11 people have done that. That's not very good. So everyone needs to go to the SGA website where it says at the top members. Then there's a box there that says SGA member registration, and there's a bunch of information. You don't have to put all of the information. You don't have to put anything you don't feel comfortable with. But you do need to fill this out just so we know, just so we can keep an accurate count of who all is in SGA.
Specifically, emergency contact information.
Yes. Right. Specifically emergency contact information and waiver, because that's required in order to go on things like lobbying trips and just other events we have. Another thing I'd like to briefly touch on, my absence update emails, be sure you guys are reading those because we have caught mistakes that way. That's why I send them out. I want people to keep track. So even if you think you've shown up to everything, even if you think you were excused of something, even if you think you've been to everything, keep an eye on those because we do make mistakes and we want to be corrected as soon as possible. That's why I send them out. I'm going to send out an update with everyone's committee on it very shortly, and I want you to check that too, just to make sure you're in the committee you think you're in, and if not, that we can get it changed as soon as possible. We've already had that issue once. And I guess that's all for me. I've gone ahead and written down, looked around the room and written down most of the people I think are here, so I'm just going to call out people I missed. Oh, at the end. Zoller, Senator Zoller, Senator Hendler, Senator Hendler, Senator Pulliam.
Howdy.
Senator Davenport.
Debate Monday, Briarcrest Country Club. Next Monday.
Senator Logston. Senator Logston. Senator Munson. Senator Munson. Senator Wilson. Senator Wilson. Senator Becerra. Senator Becerra. Senator Krepley. Senator Krepley. Senator LaMarche. Senator LaMarche. Senator Rooney. Senator Rooney. Senator Lawson. And then finally, I'd like to announce the following vacancies for seats. Vacancy apps are going to open up tonight, and they will be due next Wednesday, the 27th at 5 p.m. The vacancies will be in the College of Engineering, the College of General Studies, and the Off-Campus Caucus, and the College of Medicine. And it's all for what?
Wake up! Howdy! Guys, please help us clean up. Keep it healthy. Let us get out of here as soon as possible.